podcast.
Oh my god.
Remember that one,
Bringing it back.
Josh, remember that one that we were gonna do? We were gonna trash this league like completely.
We were like, no, let's not.
it's
do
like
that.
no, we'd
Yeah,
get
because it's a
so
waste
much
of time.
We'd
No,
get so
man,
much
okay.
hate.
Maybe it's not a good idea to completely trash
Oh,
this
so y'all trying to copy?
league.
So y'all trying to copy what me and Loudon did already? No.
We had this
Yeah.
thing back way last year that was called the Art of Virtual Wrestling podcast that actually did pretty well. It actually did pretty well. It got a decent amount of views. We were going to do a second one where we were going to trash this league. Ironically enough, it's a league that's going to be at the Queens of Wrestling, UCCW. And ironically enough, it was this UCCW. What was it?
UCCW exclusive.
Yeah, that's it. That was
New
exactly
Japan
what
All
we were
Wrestling.
gonna trash.
Oh,
we were
my
all
God.
basically.
The
We
worst.
spent like an hour trashing
That was
every
the worst.
thing they've done since they started, and we were like, let's fucking record this.
That was the worst
I ended up
thing
having
I've
to
ever
track him
seen.
down.
That
I
was
ended
the
up having
worst
to track
thing.
him down. He had me in his league, and I didn't even give him permission to do it. And he had me in his league for a while. It comes to find out.
Thing. That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah,
every single person had jeans. Every single call that came out there had jeans.
Every one of them were backyarders. Those weren't wrestlers. Those were yardards.
Yeah,
they had a New Japan arena. They had a New Japan arena with a New Japan table with the announcers, and then they automatically switch to a WrestleMania 25 stage. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What sense does that make? No logos at all. No consistency whatsoever. It was horrible, and we were going to do an episode, and it never.
Ain't that owned by Deathly Dangerous or something like that?
Yeah, that's fact.
Yeah, that's that guy. Yeah, that's the right league I was thinking of.
Okay,
That's the guy
so
who I had to
firstly,
track
I just
down.
want to point out he talks about how WWE sucks, TNA sucks, and he says ROH compared to their golden years, they suck this year. I'm like, wow, okay, they suck now. Why? Because Gabe Spokowski wasn't a part of it. Why? Because Gabe Spokowski wasn't a part of it. Yeah, let me tell you something about Gabe Spokowski. Gabe Spokowski was only good in ROH because he had fucking people there with him. He was a one-trick goddamn pony. That half of his stuff came from him being under Paul Heyman's nutsack for like half those years in ECW, and he learned something. But after that, he was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering over myself because I'm kind of annoyed, kind of frustrated.
He's upset.
Yeah,
we can tell.
Because I hate when somebody says professional wrestling is dying a slow and painful death. I'm like, the fuck? How can you say that?
A lot of
Here's-
people said that in the past. For the last few years, they've said that.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'm like this. If professional wrestling is dying, then how come it's still around?
They got a lot of young people who's
If professional wrestling is
dying,
dying, how come we have more independent promotions than we used to have back in those eras back through the golden eras, huh?
I think,
And the fact that it's like.
Like, I'm sorry if shit evolved over the years to where it's not the same as it used to be in the 70s and 80s. Because here's the thing. As much as people want to talk about how the old school used to have intangibles and all that, yeah, they did. But guess what? If it stayed that way, wrestling really would have died somewhere in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Here's what I freaking love. This is the funny part. How people talk about how the 70s and the 80s were so great, and they want to bring up the early 2000s and the 90s and all that. And they want to talk about how wrestling is dying. If it wasn't for people who thought outside the box when it comes to wrestling, wrestling wouldn't even make the progress that it did now. Because I'm telling you, back in the 70s and 80s, it was close-knitted. It was sacred. And there were only specific people that would have, there was only like specific people that could have went over or, who would get what. Hell, if you think about it, Hakeem talks about WCW and ECW and he brings up ECW a lot, and it tells me he's Paul Heyman guy. Do you know that Paul Heyman is hated and not really liked by the old school managers because of the fact that he went against the actual book of wrestling? So you mean to tell me that wrestling is dying, yet you will praise Paul Heyman for changing the game? And you'll vilify Vince McMahon for doing the exact same. The fuck is wrong with you?
I'll say.
You know what? As much as Vince McMahon gets so much shit for like destroying promotions, Vince McMahon wanted to do something different than anybody else. He wanted to do something different. He was the beginning of Paul Heyman was next, and so on and so forth. So, for you to say that wrestling is dying a slow and painful death shows me that you obviously don't pay attention, or you just fell out of it, or you just somewhere down the line you just fell out of wrestling and you just don't even care anymore. Because if you have that kind of mentality, thinking that wrestling is dead, then congratulations, you are basically 20% of the IWC. You really are. You're 20% of the IWC that say the same freaking thing. And you know what? The internet in general is like one massive ball of complaints anyway.
Tons of it.
You can't say one thing without somebody bitching at you. So you know what? It's not surprising, but still it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to continue listening on to this because just the fact that he... Oh, and here's the funny part. He talks about how Lucha Underground was different. Motherfucker, it's just AAA in the States.
Oh yeah, I've been liking on freaking Cody Hall's freaking development.
Yeah, like it's like he brings up how AAA is the only thing that's kind of doing good in the business and bringing something new. I'm like, dude, it's just a fucking lucha promotion from AAA that Robert Rodriguez decided to bring in because he wanted to test Lucha Libre Wrestling out because he was somewhat of a fan of it. Lucha Libre in the USA is nothing new. Jesus. I'm gonna love his shit on WWE. I'm gonna love his shit on WWE.
Well, I think that the key thing what we all have to understand is simple. If wrestling is dying, there would be no WWE network. WWE would have gone out of business a long time ago.
There was no wrestling. We wouldn't
even have thousands and thousands. There would be no thousands of people going to shows days after day.
There wouldn't be no promote. There wouldn't be anything.
Mm-hmm.
If wrestling was dying, it would have died out in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Because the moment ECW started, that would have been the death.
Yeah.
Because that is what everybody thought when Paul Heyman made ECW. Because Paul Heyman went against everything that wrestling was made on. He knew the rules, he knew the book, he knew it all. He threw that shit out the window. And here's the best part. The moment he broke off with NWA and had Shane Douglas drop the NWA title, that could have been the death of wrestling, because Paul Heyman literally because Shane Douglas literally just dropped God knows how many years of heritage down from the George Hackenschmidts to the Lou Thesz and all of them. Mm. That would have been the death of wrestling. But no. It's not. Why? Because it was an amazing angle. It was a hell of a good story, and it gave ECW its personality and its name. So, for anyone that says that wrestling is dead, I always say this. If that's true, then we wouldn't have wrestling now. Because wrestling would have died in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling would have died the moment the NWA became irrelevant. Wrestling would have died the moment Paul Heyman made ECW. You wouldn't have... Wrestling would have died if Iron Sheik never gave Hulk Hogan the push. Spare me that wrestling is dying bullshit. Just because certain things don't always go the way you wish and hope it goes doesn't mean that wrestling is dead, because here's the bottom line. You can never please out of the millions of people that watch this show, only about a few hundred are really going to enjoy it, but the rest of them are gonna freaking hate it. But you know what? They're gonna come back to the next show. Why? Because
when your voice starts getting deep, loud, and you sound so sinister.
That came out of nowhere. We just had this serious conversation. We just had this serious conversation, and then all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute. You know what, Loudon? When your voice gets all deep like that, you know what you sound like? You sound sinister. I'm like, what the hell?
I didn't start noticing that when you were speaking.
We go from talking about pro wrestling to sinister deep voices. What's going on here?
Gotta make a laugh out of something.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it.
It's not Thursday night between 7 and 9. Come on now.
Gotta have some kind of comedic effect in there.
Josh would know about that.
He can't be all serious all the time.
True.
Josh, you know about that. You've been there between 7 and 9. You've heard a lot of deep voices.
Excuse me? What? What about 7 and 9?
I said you've been there on Thursday nights between 7 and 9. You've heard some deep, sinister voices.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. Tomorrow Thursday. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Here we go. But I get where Malik is coming from. I get where Malik is coming from. I understand where he's coming from, because wrestling survived ECW doing a crucifixion on there, and wrestling can survive that. You can rest assured.
Wrestling survived with a hanging on air too.
Wrestling survived through the fucking Vince Russo era. Wrestling can survive much longer.
Yeah, wrestling even survived when chairs start being thrown into the ring.
We have survived much worse than what's going on now.
I mean, look at what's going on with NXT. Triple H is doing an excellent job bringing up talent, letting them
he mentioned
thrive.
Too. Loudon, he mentioned that too. He mentioned how even when Triple H eventually takes over, it won't change anything because Stephanie. So yeah. Which I don't know. I can't really agree or disagree with that.
Everybody tries to think that their opinions are more valid than anybody else's. That's
oh my God!
Problem.
So now he's freaking out. Now he's getting to WWE, and he's like, "How could you sit there and say, like, you sit there with a clear conscience and any integrity and say that this product is the best it's ever been?" NXT.
Then again, maybe he's comparing it. He's not comparing NXT in a way. He's just talking about the main roster.
No, I bet you he's gonna talk about how NXT isn't that all that great, and I'm gonna be like, motherfucker.
Well, I mean,
if he does that, I'll be like, you don't know what the fuck you want, dude.
Well, just to save you some time, he did.
Oh, really? What did he say?
He said that NXT is good right now, yes, but he said he didn't really specifically address NXT. Well, yeah, he did. He said that Triple H is doing the same thing that Vince did in the 80s, I think either 80s or 90s or whatever, when he was buying out the territories and stuff by raiding the independent scene and stuff like that. And then he said that even when he takes over, it's not going to even really change much because Stephanie's just going to water everything down.
Wow, that's...
Oh, boy. Ooh.
Excuse me? I guess he doesn't know Steph's running NXT with Triple H, does he?
Probably not. But
he probably doesn't know that. No, because let's see. Stephanie would water down the product.
Well, you know,
Stephanie runs the women's division in NXT.
Wasn't she the one who, well, along with Triple H, did sign Sarah Del Rey and Sarah Stock and stuff?
Yeah. It was Triple H's baby. NXT was Triple H's baby. Triple H like the main thing that's about it. But Steph also was over the women's division.
Oh yeah. Did you hear about Athena getting signed?
Yeah, Athena's signed.
Yeah, I can't wait to see her.
Do
the old face.
She was signed with Biff Busick.
Yeah, when she does the O face in NXT, I will be marking out like crazy.
If she does the O face, I'm gonna make an O face.
I'll be like, wow. Josh, have you seen any of Athena's matches?
Dude, you're missing out on something amazing.
I saw her match with Mercedes Martinez and I think Shimmer. That was a great match.
Athena is my wife.
Because usually I watch women's matches to get an idea of how Wildcats should be, ring and stuff like that. So, I watched it and I'm like, man, that's good.
Let me just point out how, I haven't even went through this entire newscast, but he literally is just speaking from somebody who just gave up. And he is so pessimistic.
He kind of did say he wasn't going to watch. He doesn't watch as much of the product anymore because he's just kind of done with it, really.
I'm sorry, but he comes off as a pessimistic fuck who just gave up. And doesn't even bother trying to find the good in shit. Because, shockingly enough, even in the piles of shit, there's some diamonds in there. And apparently he doesn't see that. And he may think this mentality is, you get what you can get. No. See, just because I find the good in stuff that you probably can't find the good in because there's a part of you that's just mad because it just doesn't go your damn way because you're a biased fuck. Oh, and everything. I'm sorry. I love Akeem, but Akeem is a biased fuck. This is the same dude that got pissed off because Triple H beat Sting.
Oh.
I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, why the fuck does it matter that Triple H beat Sting? It's still a hell of a good match.
And they shook hands afterward. And,
yeah,
and Triple H and they've even went through the story more, and is like, Sting went out and said, I respect Triple H, and Triple H just said, I respect Sting and everything he's done for the business and stuff like that, So if it was all that wrong, then, they would still advance the angle even further now and say, I respect him and he respects me, and, it's not like, oh, well, I beat Sting, and he's not gloating about it. He's like, I respect him.
Yeah. It fucking ended it perfectly to me.
I mean, because if he didn't respect him, then he wouldn't give him a match on Raw. Come on now.
You mean really? Jesus. And that's just the problem. Hakeem legit talks out of his ass as somebody who's just mad because shit doesn't go the way he wishes it could go. He's the same dude that talks about, oh man, some of these guys, they need to go back to the 70s and 80s and remember how things used to be. I'm like, dude, you do realize that half of the fucking storylines now are the same damn storylines from the 70s and 80s, but they're twisted in a different way, right?
Especially NXT.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic.
Jesus Christ.
That tag team classic idea is absolutely going brilliantly, by the way.
Dude, that is the Dusty Rhodes tag team classic. That is basically so Memphis it hurts.
I think it's going exactly the way it would go back in the day.
Exactly.
And they're even doing matches at live events, and showing them on TV. Maybe not the whole thing, but they're at least acknowledging, hey, this happened in this town, and this happened in this town. Exactly like back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there and you're bitching and moaning because Because I'm sorry, that's just 2.5 hours of him bitching and moaning because shit doesn't go the way he wishes it could go. How he envisions it should go.
You know something? That sounds just like Steven.
That's legit
Well,
how it is.
Yeah.
Oh, question. Did he bitch about the Divas Revolution deal? Because if so, I have an hour long of how I feel about that.
He actually did and said that giving the title to Charlotte at this point wouldn't make any bit of sense because you already ruined it by
Really? How did he ruin it?
By basically giving her the belt and then pulling that angle with the whole Twin Magic stuff, and well, basically the same thing that everybody's been saying about it for the last few days now.
Okay.
That it was basically dumb what they pulled off.
Let me get my water.
Well, this could take all night, so sit back and relax and let the trash talking begin.
Okay.
Hey Carter, you're recording, right?
I've been recording this whole conversation.
Oh, good.
Okay.
This may not happen on my channel because I'm MIA, but it might happen on somebody else's. Maybe Smokey's.
I know this much. Here's my thing. King, you may not be my friend anymore after this. Cause
I was just about to say. I'm thinking that your friendship,
like, dude, Hakeem, here's my thing.
We're not agreeing or disagreeing with any of this right now. This is all coming from Loudon's mind. So, you know.
So here's the thing. You may not.
Think of the biased commentary coming up.
You may hate me. You may hate me after this, but Hakeem, as long as you've known me and as many calls you've been in here with me, you should understand that I have a different way of thinking than anybody here in certain things. And I may piss you off, but hey, I'm just speaking my mind. You got a problem with it? You got a problem with it. All right, so the whole Divas Revolution thing. I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here and say that in the giving situation, considering that certain people that tries to push the women there and can't get what they want because, certain people in the back are more empowered than them. It's working in a way and it's exposing Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and all of them. It's giving the roster more notice. All right? Not by much, but it's giving them something. Fuck, Alicia Fox is actually getting matches now because Alicia Fox is an actual waste because Alicia Fox was doing jack to nothing, which I'm happy that she's doing something. Naomi's got something. Tamina, God, I'm actually seeing Tamina in a match where she isn't a bodyguard to somebody. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I missed the fact that Tamina I missed the fact that Tamina never had matches. Now she's having matches. And, the fact that there's like teams and all that, yeah, it doesn't make sense half the time, but then again, considering the circumstances and considering, again, like I said, certain people in power that aren't Triple H or Stephanie, again, I'm playing the devil's advocate here because, a lot of people think that if Triple H were in the show, he'll water it down, which is dumb. Because if NXT shows you, I think Triple H really knows what the fuck he's doing.
Well, I mean, he said something about like getting rid of Kevin Dunn and pretty much all the creative staff. And
Amen.
Yeah, because here's the thing: Trips hates Kevin Dunn.
Yep.
He hates Kevin Dunn.
I mean, here's the thing, because
gives no shits about wrestling.
Because, it's been pretty obvious that Triple H is high on Cesaro and Kevin Owens and, all these people that he got. It's very ironic because it's very ironic in the fact that those people that are Triple H's guys are now being quote unquote buried or, put down lower down on the card than Triple H would probably like them to be because Kevin Dunn doesn't like them.
I give you an example of that because
Sheamus.
On the SmackDown spoilers, Big Show beat Cesaro thanks to that knockout punch.
Anyway,
why?
I just want to go back to the whole Divas angle thing. When I first saw the match, I was one of those people that was with, why do Twin Magic when they're obviously different? body size wise. Now, if this was a couple of years ago, and Nikki didn't get breast implants and got a little thicker, and she's about the same size as Brie, it would
not
work.
like we're complaining or anything. But,
Oh yeah, hell yeah, not like we were.
Not that we're complaining or anything, but
Not that we're
we're
complaining because
wrestling wise,
yeah, let's go with that. Wrestling wise, yeah, wrestling wise. John Cena, you lucky son of a bitch.
I knew you were gonna go there, man.
Hey, let me tell y'all something. Here's another devil's advocate. I don't really hate the Bellas as many other people hate them. I actually like the Bellas. I really do. Even Nikki. Oh shit, here comes the hate.
Nikki's actually improved a lot more than people give her
Yeah, but here's the
credit
problem.
for.
People don't want to see that. People don't.
Well, no, they
people don't want to.
It's like I said. It's like I said before. Like people want to place the blame on somebody else that they can't. No, they can't see the creative staff. They can't see Kevin Dunn, so they blame it on the people they can see, like Nikki and like Cena.
They'll blame it on the wrestlers when it's like you should blame the creative writers more than anything. And even still, here's the funny part.
If Nikki was in NXT, she probably would be 5 times as better as she is right now.
Here's the funny part. When it comes to Akeem talking about this, it's like he has an understanding, but he still kind of blames the wrestlers too, which is kind of weird. But whatever. Again, like I said, I was one of those people that was like, why do the Twin Magic win, you know? But then I saw that Brie kind of stuffed her bra, which was kind of beautiful to see. And when
she's done that a few times now, I think.
Yeah, like she stuffs her bra, which I like. Wait a minute.
That makes sense.
I'm like, wait a minute. If you really pay attention, body-wise, they're kind of the same, except 2 blaring problems. Holy shit, Brie's stuffing her. Ingenious. Apparently somebody told her, if you're going to do Twin Magic, you gotta at least, you know, look like her.
Yeah, look the part.
So she stuffed her bra. Beautiful. You know, great. But now she needs to wear Daisy Dukes and freaking, now all she has to do is actually wear the same shit that Nikki comes out with, and then she'd be set. But whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think they do the Twin Magic now. They legit do the Twin Magic now because they know it will piss people off.
Mm-hmm.
Like back then they did it because they were legit twins and they could fool the hell out of somebody.
It works better now than it did back then when you think about it.
It works better now for the simple fact that
it legit pisses people off when they do it too.
Yeah,
and it really riles up the fans. And that's awesome. That's why the Bellas are as over as they are.
They're doing their job.
Exactly. The Bellas are the best heels in the company right now.
Oh, he goes off about that whole doing their job thing too.
Especially Nikki.
Boy.
Yeah, Nikki has to be without doubt the best heel in the company right now.
They actually did like a really condescending but very great promo about her breaking the record and stuff like that. Did you see it?
Like she's annoying, she's cocky, she's bitchy. It's the perfect heel.
But then you see little girls in the crowd and stuff that still have those Bella signs, and it's like, it's condescending and stuff, but also she plays it so well that it comes off as she's this strong, independent woman, which little girls could get behind, and that's what happens. She's playing a perfect heel face. She's healed at all the people that just can't stand her anymore, and then she's playing face to all the little girls that need some strong, powerful woman to look after.
Here's like the whole thing with the Twin Magic thing. They obviously gave that to Nikki because I'm sorry, but to them, Nikki is the face of the Divas division.
Yeah.
They want her to be the face of the Divas division. And whether or not people believe it's because Cena or something else, which I'm going to get to on that whole entire thing, and I think
mostly Cena.
But even still, if at Night of Champions, I said this to Carter in the chat, it doesn't matter who wins because everybody's going to have a problem with it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If Nikki wins, people will get pissed off, and they'll continue with the whole, she's blowing Cena, that's why she kept the belt.
She's sleeping her way to the top.
Pretty much. If Charlotte wins, it'd be like, oh,
well, they should have just kept it on Monday and stuff.
So she should have just won it on Monday. That way Nikki wouldn't have lost it.
Yeah.
In other words, it's a lose-lose situation.
At any rate, they should just have it be like a no contest, or just have Nikki outright win, and then have Sasha take it off of her. At this point, that's what I said before. It's like, just have Nikki retain it at this point, and then just have Sasha beat her, which should have been happening anyway, because Sasha actually made her tap out twice, I think.
Yeah.
And she still hasn't gotten a title shot yet.
That's
and
a
if
shame.
If they were smart, they'd make that a storyline and be like, okay, the powers that be are clearly not wanting me to have a title shot when I beat the face of the Divas division twice. And I should clearly be at a title shot, but you give Charlotte a title shot because she's a Flair and blah, blah, blah. That would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a perfect storyline to go with. Like, I wasn't born into the business. I worked my way up, and yet the powers that be, or whatever, the authority, doesn't want me to be Divas champion. They don't want me to have a title shot, even though I beat their hand-picked face twice. And then that gives you a great storyline to go with, and then she could break off from Team Bad because she really doesn't need to be there anyway, because people cheer her regardless at this point.
Plus, she could throw in the Cena thing.
Yeah,
she's going after Nikki.
If they really want to push it, they could do that. And then basically have her get screwed out at Hell in a Cell, and have her actually win at Survivor Series in this big moment when she actually wins the belt, change it over to the women's title, and actually save this storyline. Because that's the only thing that really will make it better at this point.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but do you really think that?
No, I know they're not going to do it. I know they're not going to do it. I'm just telling you that would be better than what they're doing.
If Triple H would take over, then hell yeah, they would go exactly like that probably.
I mean, what other reason would there be for NXT to be having a 30-minute Iron Woman match, headlining, main eventing a special event? 30-minute women's match. Come on now.
Main event.
In the main event.
Isn't that taking place in an NXT takeover?
Yeah, it's main eventing a pay-per-view pretty much.
Main eventing, yeah. It's main eventing a WWE Network mega event.
Alright, I'm sorry, I'm back. Jesus.
There is no other explanation. Triple H is letting the women headline a mega event on the WWE Network for 30 minutes.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I had to go do something real quick. But like I tried to say, I know you probably talk about something else, but like I said, Night Champions, it really doesn't matter.
I just went on a tangent about what they should do, but you can go ahead. I'll probably tell you in a minute.
It doesn't matter if Nikki keeps the belt or if, Charlotte wins the belt. Because to them, if Charlotte wins the belt, it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if anything, it's like...
Charlotte got booed when she won that Beat the Clock challenge anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair. I mean, this is what I was telling Carter, Josh, and Smokey a second ago. Really, they should just keep the title on Nikki, have Sasha run for the belt. Be like,
because here's the thing.
I beat her already, but you never gave me a title shot that I deserve to have. And have this big storyline where she's chasing after the belt because the authority or whoever doesn't want her to be champion. That'd been perfect.
Yeah, because here's the thing: out of all the women that came in through the Divas Revolution, the ones that get the most pop are Sasha and Becky Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And Hakeem said this too. He even admitted that the only person in that whole group that would probably be the bigger star out of the whole 9 people in that group is Sasha.
Yeah, because Sasha is like the most well-rounded performer in that whole group. She's got the character, she's got the look,
She's got the in-ring ability, and she's got the mic skills. Everything that a top diva needs, and the only thing that's holding her back is Kevin freaking Dunn and the creative staff.
Yeah.
That's the.
And even Becky Lynch.
Did you see that? Yeah, even Becky Lynch. Like, you can get behind Becky Lynch too.
Oh yeah, Becky Lynch is really over right now.
Yeah, I mean,
and the messed up part is when Becky came through, I was like, oh man, Becky's gonna be that one girl that does not get over. That's on the outside looking in with all that talent.
Mm-hmm.
But I was happy to be wrong. But the whole thing about
she still kind of is on the outside looking in, though. Like, she's had a few wins here.
Yeah, but not in the fans' eyes.
I mean,
in the fans' eyes, she's the most over on the roster.
No, I mean, Sasha is really, but they just...
I'm one of the most over. Her and Sasha are up there at the top.
Yeah, but then again, you think about it this way. With the way they've been booking it, Becky's not even anywhere close to a title match. Even anywhere close to being talked about for a title match. That's the thing I'm talking about. She may be over, and she may have all this, the in-ring ability and stuff like that. But she's nowhere. The fans are like, at this point, the only people that are really the main focal points of this is Sasha, Charlotte, and Nikki. That's it. Everybody else is just on the outside looking in because of this.
Like,
he even did a thing. Sorry to cut you off, but he even went on and said that the whole thing would have been better if it was dead in the water as soon as Stephanie announced them, which I can kind of understand because Triple H is really the one that people see the most headlining with the NXT and stuff like that, so it would have made sense for him to do it.
Even though people don't get the fact that Stephanie is part of NXT.
They don't get it because they don't see Stephanie much. They mostly see Triple H behind it all. That's why they don't get it. And I could see why Triple H would be the one to introduce them, But that being said, he said that the second thing that probably would have been better is if Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky all came in together as the four horsewomen and just dominated everybody. Which I could also see, instead of splitting everybody up and keeping Bayley down there. But in which case, that actually worked in Bayley's favor because they ran that whole storyline with the three women going up to the main roster, and Bayley's just stuck there because she's been so close to the top of the mountain, but it ultimately keeps falling down. If you saw that promo, before Sasha and Bayley's match at TakeOver, it was, that picture with them holding up the four and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how Charlotte and Becky and Sasha all faded away, and it was just Bayley left. That was perfect. That was a clear example of Triple H and their creative team taking advantage of the main roster team. Mm-hmm. They turned that whole thing into a storyline, and it made so much sense because Bayley never made it to the big one. She never won the women's title, no matter how. And even Becky didn't win the women's title, but because of how much she improved and how much she impressed, she went to the main roster. Bayley didn't.
Yeah, because they had a plan for Bayley.
Exactly, but it worked.
Mm-hmm. Because
when started saying, "How come Bayley's not here? How come Bayley's not here?" They worked with that.
Mm-hmm.
They made it a storyline, and they turned it even more in her redemption story, and it worked in the end when she won the title.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like all these reports are coming out that's like having Eva Marie take the belt, which in the whole thing it's like don't do that.
Even though Eva Marie is actually slowly improving, and
but nobody sees that. Nobody sees that.
Yeah, because they're too busy.
They're too busy going. Oh, this was a total diva star. Oh, she could barely run the rope. She could barely do a move. Blah blah blah. Which don't put her near that. You're gonna ruin women's division by putting the belt on her.
Yet here's the funny part: people don't check her freaking Instagram, and they don't realize that she took a hiatus from Total Divas and everything in general just to learn how to work from Brian Kendrick of all people.
And the fact that, her being in front of that crowd that eats her alive every time she steps through the curtain has to put nerves on her.
Oh, and here's the best part. This shows just how much she's improved.
Mm-hmm.
she had a match with Carmella. Now, Carmella and herself, there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done in there. Yeah. On TakeOver, on one of the shows when they were in Brooklyn, she had a match with Carmella. Mm-hmm. That crowd ate her the hell up. And you know what she did half the time? During the time when she put a rest hold in, she would blow kisses to the crowd. She would smile at them.
That signature snobby stuff that she used to do.
Every time they say you can't wrestle, she does a freaking chain. She does like this sequence of moves.
It's like she's
and then looks back at the crowd smiling.
Yeah.
So I just think the whole thing about people bitching about the fact of whoever wins or what, because like the only reason people are mad about Monday night is one thing and one thing only, because Nikki Bella broke AJ's record. Oh my gosh, she broke the record.
Yep.
Do you know? I'm sorry, I love AJ, but do you really honestly think anyone gave a flying fuck about AJ's record when she was Whip Divas champion?
The only thing they cared about was CM Punk, really.
Mm-hmm.
Even when she came back, that's all they cared about. Because if they really cared about AJ, they wouldn't chant CM Punk halfway through her matches.
Well, that was because everybody knew she was dating Punk because it came out.
Yeah, but still, that showed you how much they actually cared about her and.
Yeah, how much they really cared about her in the Divas Championship. Like the only reason people really start caring, which you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing I also laugh at when I hear people say Nikki Bella is not good. Nikki Bella got AJ Lee over just by her streak. Want to know how she got AJ Lee's Diva streak over? By the fact that they kept pushing it that she was only a month away from breaking her record.
Yep.
No one cared after that. Like, a lot of people go like, no, I care. No. Yeah, these 10 to 20 people or 100 really cared, but the thousands that actually are there and were there, they didn't give a shit. They did not care that AJ Lee was the longest reigning Divas champion. They only start caring because Nikki Bella had the belt and she was like a month away from getting it.
Yep.
And the fact that they kept pushing the fact that AJ Lee was getting close to being the longest reigning Divas champion. And the only one that really did care about that was AJ Lee. Because AJ Lee, also if you really think about it, AJ Lee pushed the fact that she was the longest reigning Divas champion.
Yep.
In fact, she had a tattoo on her neck just to show it.
And the fact that, now people were like, oh, well, she broke the record. Yeah, well, the only reason why you care is because A, Nikki, and 2, CM Punk's wife. So, yeah.
Which I find utterly funny because everybody is so quick to bitch out on Nikki Bella and say how she's a horrible worker and a horrible person, and because, they actually legit believe half the shit she says in Total Divas is 100% shoot, which is dumb.
And honestly, people really didn't care about AJ until she retired.
Really, they didn't.
No.
The only reason they give it, I'm sorry.
That brings me back to the chants thing, though, because if they really cared about her, they wouldn't chant CM Punk halfway, if not the entire way through her matches. Even when she started coming out, they chanted it. Yeah. When she came out to the freaking ring, they chanted CM Punk, not AJ Lee,
because she was Punk's wife.
Exactly, but even it wouldn't matter if you really cared about AJ. If you really went behind AJ, you chant AJ. You wouldn't chant a guy who quit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. You wouldn't chant for a guy who quit. You chant for AJ. Not CM Punk, AJ Lee. That's who you're supposed to get behind. If you really cared about her, you wouldn't chant for her husband's name. Even though deep down in your heart and soul, he wasn't going to come back to that company at all.
No.
But you still chanted it. And then she retired, and then you started to care.
Yeah.
And then you started to cry.
Then people started giving a damn about AJ.
And then after that, about maybe 3 or 4 months later, then they stopped caring about it. And then let's say a month ago, when Nikki started saying, I'm going to beat AJ's record, then people started to care again.
Yeah.
And now, as soon as Charlotte or somebody else wins the belt, it's going to go back to the same old status quo. It's not going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because
it's just going to have Nikki Bella's name attached to it, and sooner or later, AJ Lee's going to fade off. I'm sorry, I like AJ too, but
everybody likes AJ Lee. The problem
it's just the truth. Wrestling fans are that forgetful, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like me, myself included. We're going to all, think about it now, but maybe in about 3 or 4 months, it's going to make no difference.
It'll just be water under the bridge.
Yep.
Yeah. And is that a bad thing? I mean,
it's not a bad thing. It's just the honest truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're just going to forget. We're just going to forget about, yeah.
So again, it's like nobody can really sit there and talk about who's bad and who's what, because half of anybody looks at it with rose-tinted sunglasses and just nothing but hate and not really pay attention to the actual improvements that are done and don't get the fact that she's actually doing her job right and being one of the biggest heels for the simple fact that she knows she's pissing people off. Nikki Bella is, I also said this card, Nikki Bella is on that edge of heat and white heat. She's almost at white heat levels, like almost, because of the fact of how much people just despise her. All Nikki has to do is pull a work shoot one night. She just has to work shoot on everybody. And that crowd would almost jump the railing. That is how hot she is as a heel right now. She can literally just be like, I know everybody here is angry that I broke AJ's record. Well, you know what? You are all a bunch of hypocrites. Because it wasn't until I broke AJ's record people start caring about AJ. So, hey, AJ, you're welcome.
Oh.
All she has to do is that. Just do a work shoot one night, and the crowd would hate her even more than she already does. And you know what? She can also end it with, and when I go home, I'm going to go home with my title, rest for about a few more months because rest for a few more months with this beautiful belt around my waist and my hubby, and lying under my hubby and curling up. And they would get pissed off.
You think ever get to the point?
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were going to say the whole insane never give up C Nation, but I thought it was something Carter would say.
No. Actually, she can actually be like this. And as my husband would always say, you can't see me.
That would be legit.
And they would get angry. Like, oh my God.
That would be
deafening.
That'd be legit heat right there.
Exactly.
Like,
all she
nuclear.
was that. And if she gets that crowd pissed off at her that way, it's like,
they'd be begging anybody to get the title off her at that point.
Yeah, because like everybody already wants that title off her waist. And they feel like, it doesn't matter now because you broke AJ's record. That's still the stupidest thing in the world, though, to be fair. That's still the dumbest thing. Because they think that's a wasted storyline with the whole Divas Revolution. Which
it's not.
No, because
it can still be saved.
It's doing its job in the simple fact that it's pushing the new women who are trying to take... Because the whole entire idea of the Divas Revolution was Paige finding a way to get Nikki Bella away from the title because she felt that there needed to be a surge. Because she needed firepower to take Nikki Bella out of the title picture because because Paige was tired of the mean girl BS.
Yep.
And it plays well because Nikki Bella's the catalyst. So in a sense, the Divas Revolution is working because it's playing the fact of Nikki Bella being this ultimate catalyst and this hated and just the most hated bitch in there right now. And it paints Sasha and Charlotte and Becky and everybody else, like even Naomi and all of them, as the ones that should just take her out. Like, Tamina, Naomi, and Sasha should be heels. They're not. They're face. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, since it's working, it's really doing its job. That's just me, though. A lot of people are going to disagree, and I know Akeem will probably disagree with how I feel. But that's just how it is. So, what else did he say?
That's all. I think you covered all of it.
I see.
Pretty much covered all of it.
And then some.
Yep. Yep.
Again, it's just, whenever I hear that BS about how wrestling is dying, it's like, people have been saying that for the longest time. Now, wrestling is still around. And for you to say that independent, and for you to say, and here's the thing, he says, I know a lot of people are going to say, there's this, and that. If you knew people are going to say that, then why still say that wrestling is dying when you know there's a crap ton, when you know that there is a plethora of choices out there in wrestling? And for you to say that the business is dying a slow and painful death because it went against what it did in the 70s and 80s. Let me point something out about the 70s and 80s. All right? It may have been good and it may have had tangibles, but you know what else it was? It was stuck in the prehistoric time. It did not want to evolve. To be fair, you can praise the 70s and 80s, but the moment you start praising the 90s, that's where I laugh at you, because the 90s went against the 70s and 80s, especially with Paul Heyman. It went against that. So in a sense, I said it before, wrestling should have died in the 90s if that was the case.
Mhm.
And even then there was shit. In the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, there's always been problems in the wrestling. For you to say that the modern day has blaring problems shows how blind you are. Because there's always been blaring problems in wrestling since the beginning. Like, I have him on Facebook. He loves to bring up WCCW, and he loves to bring up how he bases some of his guys on ACW off of, some of the people. Like, he bases one of his heels off of Gino Hernandez, and he bases them off of this, that. And I'm like, WCW was a great company, but you know what killed it? Drugs, the Von Erich tragedy, the fact that behind the scenes, Fritz Von Erich gave it to people that decided to, fuck the business over, fuck the company over. You know what else also killed it? Just like every other company, they tried to compete with Vince McMahon and they failed. Instead of
trying to be their own identity.
Yeah, they're trying to be their own identity, and they tried to compete with Vince McMahon instead of combining together and actually being like this huge global force that Vince wanted, instead of meeting up and working with Vince McMahon. They end up like everybody else and just said, no, screw Vince. He's trying to kill the business I love, which is he's trying to kill the company I love. So I'm going to make my own identity. And they fell. And they died with everything else. The problem with the 70s and the 80s was the fact that if anybody had a different idea and didn't follow the tradition, they were considered jabronis, they were considered stooges, they were considered the bastard child. Vince McMahon at the end had a passion for wrestling. He really did care. But he had higher idea. He had a bigger idea than everyone else. And he had the money and he had the power and he had the thoughts to do it. Because he wanted to be something completely different. He wanted to he wanted to build a global, he wanted to build a global force. And do you honestly think that those old veterans like Verne Gagne, Lou Thesz, and all of them, do you think they really, truly cared that he did that? No. They hated that he did that. Keep going further down. You think people liked how Eric Bischoff did things? No, they didn't. They hated how Eric Bischoff was, he went against the grain of things. Even though Eric Bischoff's a Southern boy, to be fair. And it's funny now because they put Eric Bischoff in the same category as Vince Russo. Even though Eric Bischoff was a wrestling fan and worked in wrestling. Because he was a gopher for Verne Gagne and AWA, and people forget that for some reason. But for you to stand there and say that wrestling is dying is like the most bullshit thing I've ever heard, and for you to praise the 70s and the 80s and then go on to praise the 90s is also borderline dumb to me, because it's like the 70s and the 80s hated the 90s and hated that way of thinking. And hell, the 90s hate the way the 2000s were thinking, because, to be fair, later on down the line, they took everything from ECW that was like blood and gore and they amplified it by 1,000,000, and they hate that. So, for you to say that there was never a blaring problem in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and say that the modern day is horrible in the way everything is going now, that is complete bullshit, because there was never a perfect year for wrestling. Never. The 70s had its issues. The 80s had its issues. The 90s, oh God, did they have their issues.
Oof.
And for you to say that there wasn't any, for you to, say that, for you to like completely trash the modern day and say that it's bad and say that, back then it was so great. Fuck you. No, there were problems. And I can name a few. Like, okay, in the 70s, the fact that Roddy Piper never got to be in Madison Square Garden when his first go around when he was a young kid, because he got bullied and he got ribbed hardcore. Like, he tells a story about how his first time in Madison Square Garden, he was going to go out there and play the bagpipes, because back then when he was a young kid, he would his thing of coming out to the ring, he would play bagpipes coming out to the ring. One of the old veterans put talcum powder in his bagpipes, and he never went back to the Garden again. A lot of people that could have made it never got a chance to make it because of how close-knit and sacred the business was. You may think that's a good idea, and to an extent it is, because it eliminates who really wants it and who does. But it also is pretty effed up because you can legit take somebody out that had the talent, had the passion, and you just kind of kill it in them. '80s had its issues, in the simple fact that something of the cartoony gimmick aspect started to slowly die, and some of it was, interesting, and there were and oh man, even back then, when it came to the WWF, Hogan was the guy. There were tons of others that could have been great. There were tons of others that could have been in the top spot. They never got the chance to be in the top spot.
Ted DiBiase,
Jake Roberts.
Victor Model Martel,
Yeah.
Rick Rude. We could go on.
Yeah. And if you really look back at it now, it's like there were so many other great talents besides Hogan that you wonder how come they were never given that chance.
I mean, you gotta even throw in Kurt Hennig into the conversation.
Kurt Hennig is like one of the big ones. And then like down the line, the 90s happened, and here's the thing, the NWA is slowly deteriorating and nobody really cares much about it anymore because, you know, how Vince just kind of bulldozed over people who didn't.
I think Memphis wrestling died out during that time.
Yeah, Memphis wrestling died out. And everybody was either going to Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, or they were going to WWE and hoping and praying. Or the majority of them just kind of retired and just faded away or kept working in Tennessee because they were too freaking afraid to move out of Tennessee. That's a different story. And then in the 90s, the cartoony gimmicks were like dying out and nobody cared about them anymore. And they wanted to change, and you had to change or, you know, something happened. And so you have a man by the name of Paul Heyman who's been around and he decides he's going to flip the script on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my problem. So here's, again, it's like the wrestling business isn't dying. The wrestling business is evolving. It's been evolving since the 80s. Because the 70s hated the 80s for the bodybuilder Hulk Hogan, for the bodybuilder look with no athleticism and no ring ability. The 80s hates the 90s because of how they went against the traditions that they felt that they withheld for the longest time. Mm-hmm. And they felt that it was nothing but now glorified high spot after high spot.
The new generation.
Exactly. Even though every little spot that they do is the same damn thing that was done in the 70s and the 80s, but twisted in a different way now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you go off the top rope. Okay, well, I can do an elbow drop off the top rope. Okay, then I can do the splash off the top rope. And moves have evolved over the years. Even certain spots have evolved over the years.
You remember when Jimmy Superfly Snuka flew off from the top of the cage?
Yeah. Like Jimmy Snuka flew off the top of the cage. And now then, you know, down the line you get Kurt Angle moonsaulting off the cage. You get Mick Foley elbow dropping somebody off the cage.
Jeff Hardy,
God, doing every freaking bit of things ever. It's like this new generation that you so want to bitch about. It's like they're just evolving from the very same. They're just evolving the spot. And for you to say it's a bad thing is kind of dumb because let's be real. Let's be real. Back then, the 80s were just evolving spots from the 70s. Because the 70s, the majority of them never went up to the top rope. Only rarely. But now they're going up to the top rope. Wow, I just went, you know.
I get what you're saying, and I think that, you know, wrestling has to evolve because if the things that were during the 70s how they are now, we would still have wrestling territories. Wrestling probably would be dead by this point, like you said. You got to let wrestling evolve. You know, change won't happen. Otherwise, you just gonna be stubborn. Just gotta be patient with it. you know what's gonna happen when we stop saying something. Josh stop playing his guitar.
Smokey, you still there?
I have to take Josh's guitar and
Yeah, I'm here.
burn it.
I'm just reading something. I just found
You're
out.
jealous, Carter.
Yeah, I read what you. I read the same thing.